This is the 10 p.m. edition of News Center 11 for Saturday, March 10th, 1979. With anchorman Stan Borman, Keith Eichner with the weather, Steve Pacenti on sports, and the News Center 11 reporting team.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Stan Borman with News Center 11, and here's what's happening at 10 o'clock tonight. President Carter is in Jerusalem in another attempt at shuttle diplomacy. Mr. Carter is meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin in an effort to bring about a Mideast peace treaty. NBC's John Dancy has more on that story.
President Carter arrived in Israel to an enthusiastic kiss from Prime Minister Begin. It seemed to bode well for the talks here, and the mood was definitely upbeat. However, U.S. officials cautioned reporters that the unresolved issues are real ones. But President Carter, in his arrival statement, put the talks in the most hopeful light yet.
During the last 3 days, I have spent many hours discussing with President Sadat what could be the final details of a treaty of peace. I have good reason to hope that the goal can now be reached. But of course, the ultimate choice lies where those choices have always lain, with the chosen representatives of the people who have suffered directly from so many years of destruction and bloodshed. I look forward to completing the urgent business at hand on this brief visit.
I have good reason to hope the goal can now be reached, a phrase that seemed to mean an agreement is so close it can be accomplished on this trip. But Mr. Carter's mission is not universally admired in Israel. Right-wing demonstrators greeted him at several points along his motorcade to Jerusalem, and at one point, an egg sailed out of the crowd and hit his car. Tonight, the President and Mrs. Carter had dinner with Prime Minister and Mrs. Begin, the beginning of the talks. Afterward, it was announced that the two delegations will meet tomorrow morning.
Earlier today, President Carter drove to the streets of Cairo, Egypt, to the cheers of thousands of onlookers. The President took a quick tour of the ancient city and the historic pyramids there. Mr. Carter's warmest reception came during his address to the Egyptian parliament, which was televised throughout Egypt. The lawmakers interrupted Mr. Carter nearly a dozen times during his speech. The President told the applauding legislators that a treaty that would protect the vital interests of both Egypt and Israel is within grasp. And he called on other Arab nations, particularly the moderates, to get behind President Anwar Sadat's peace negotiations. Here's the way he put it this afternoon.
I pledge to you today that I also remain personally committed to move on to negotiations concerning the West Bank and the Gaza Strip and other issues of concern to the Palestinians, and to future negotiations.
We had a very fruitful talk. As exactly President Carter stated, we have overcome some of the difficulties. Some other issues are to be settled. And we wish to President Carter and Mrs. Carter all the best wishes and fulfillment and achievement in his visit to Israel.
Just a matter of hours before the president arrived in Jerusalem, Israeli troops were forced to stop a Palestinian kidnap plan. NBC's Rod Davis reports.
The bodies of these 4 men were on display this morning at a paratrooper camp in Israel. The soldiers say these were terrorists trying to infiltrate Israel from Jordan last night. They were well armed with Soviet-made automatic weapons, a grenade launcher, and the grenades. We weren't allowed to take any pictures of this camp, but it's located about 2.5 miles from the Jordan River on the West Bank, the dividing line between Jordan and Israel. The soldiers say their command car was fired on from the fields at about midnight. They fired back. 1 terrorist was killed. A lieutenant describes what happened next.
We began to go inside the field, and suddenly 4 meters before us, one of the terrorists rose up from the ground, and immediately all of us opened fire, and then we saw that 3 of the terrorists were killed.
Literature taken from the bodies tells of a plan to capture 10 Israelis and hold them as hostages until 10 other terrorists held in jails here were released.
Meanwhile, in another troubled spot of the world, Tanzanian invaders and Ugandan exiles seeking to overthrow President Idi Amin appear to be advancing slowly and carefully toward the Ugandan capital of Kampala. They apparently have not been turned back, as President Amin claims. Well-informed Ugandan exiles say the invasion force has reached Lukaya, a town of about 50 miles south of Kampala. Iranian women went on strike in Tehran today. They were protesting the loss of their freedom under Islamic rule. They reportedly want equal rights under the new constitution. Their protest march was attacked by religious zealots. Several women were reportedly injured in that melee. Meanwhile, in Washington, Senate Majority Leader Robert Byrd says that he doubts that a strategic arms limitation treaty will receive Senate approval unless the United States allocates more aid to the country of Turkey. Senator Byrd says the U.S. listening posts in Turkey are needed vitally to ensure Soviet compliance with any new SALT agreement that may come about. According to Peking's most prominent newspaper, there's been a major breach in the leadership of the Chinese Communist Party. Reportedly, the split is being caused by the Chinese invasion of Vietnam. The newspaper is quoted describing struggles troubling the party, but did not really blame the war directly for the factionalism. However, Hanoi is claiming tonight that growing anti-war feelings in China had forced the government to order the withdrawal of its army from Vietnam last Monday, and that a dissident radio station inside China has been making clandestine broadcasts against the war. Meanwhile, the Vietnamese continue to insist that the Chinese are not pulling back from the border, as they've been claiming, but charge that the Chinese troops are indiscriminately shelling cities and committing atrocities, and the war continues. Coming up in just a moment, some 1,100 Minnesota community college teachers may just be hitting the streets if they don't get exactly what they want. We'll have complete details on that and other stories as News Center 11 for a cold Saturday night continues.
All the news about energy hits home right here. Home heating oil supplies are tight these days. The people who make Amoco heating oil are doing what they can to help keep you supplied with fuel. But meanwhile, you can help by turning down the thermostat a few degrees. If you lower it 5 degrees at night, you could use about 5% less fuel. The more heating oil you conserve now, the more there'll be to go around.
The makers of Robitussin cough medicine ask, do you know which kind of cough medicine is right for your kind of cough? For instance, do you need an expectorant, with a cough suppressant, with a decongestant, or a combination of all of these? Because there are different kinds of coughs, only one of these Robitussin formulas may be right for your kind of cough. So don't let just our television commercial recommend your cough medicine. The makers of Robitussin ask you to ask your doctor or pharmacist.
Minnesota's community college teachers have given their union an overwhelming mandate to call a strike. Actually, they did that last night, but we learned it today. If a strike occurs, it would temporarily end classes for some 30,000 students in 18 community colleges around the state of Minnesota. Today, some of those students held a protest rally on the steps of the Capitol. They fear a teacher strike would rob them of tuition money and credits. Teachers meet with state officials on Monday. That could turn into a week-long series of meetings, but if an agreement is not worked out by then, a strike could be called. The teachers have been offered a 13.8% pay hike. They say fine to that, but they want that increase to be based on the salary they claim they should have been getting since 1975. The state says the pay raise would be based on the money they've actually been making. Both sides of the proposed Dome Stadium issue are gearing up for a fight next week in the state legislature. Channel 11 newsman John Hudgens covered a Dome protest rally at the state capitol today and has this report.
Rally organizers could muster only a light turnout for their Dump the Dome gathering at the Capitol this morning. Those that came met briefly, ate hot dogs, and traded complaints about how the public might have to help pay for a Dome stadium.
That we want to see repeal of the liquor tax without any kind of amendments or monkey business or deals made by the fat cats in downtown Minneapolis. We think the people should be heard, and we hope the House Tax Committee considers our, beliefs when it votes on Friday.
These protesters think this week's legislative activity about the Dome is crucial, and they promise to lobby heavily to sway lawmakers to oppose the Dome. John Hudgens, News Center 11.
Well, now they're looking to Uncle Sam. Federal help is being sought in the cleanup of chemicals from that recent Howe Fertilizer Company fire. The chemicals are being hauled off to a farm in Martin County, and Minneapolis says it needs federal help to determine the exact extent of the contamination. And ladies and gentlemen, before we start this next story, I have to warn you that some of the scenes in it are not very pleasant. As a matter of fact, they're rather grim. It shows the killing of baby seals. It's very, very graphic film. If you don't want to watch it, we'd understand you may turn away, but we feel the story should be told. A Canadian seal hunt protest was held in downtown Minneapolis today. News Center 11's Jane Mitchell was there.
These people are demonstrating about a yearly event which occurs in Canada. It's the annual seal hunt, and it's a sight which may upset some viewers, but is nevertheless a reality. This is what a seal hunt looks like. The clubbers aim for the baby seals whose fur is still white. They say it's their livelihood, but the protesters today said that's no excuse.
It really shouldn't be their livelihood because these things are innocent, they're very defenseless, and there's no practical use for what they want to do with those seals.
Who do you think is to blame? The people that club the seals or the people that buy those furs? The buyers.
The buyers, but also the clubbers. Definitely.
They wouldn't die if nobody clubbed them. This year's seal hunt has been in effect since Tuesday. Protesters say 10,000 seals have already died. This hunting season's reported quota is 183,000 seal pelts. More than 100 angry Minnesotans cheered today as thousands of petition signatures were presented to a Canadian consulate representative. He will give those signatures to the Canadian government. By law, products made from seal cub fur cannot be imported into the United States. But protesters say there's still plenty of demand for the stuff in other countries, and that Americans should boycott Canada until all exports of seal fur and all clubbing of seals stops. Jane Mitchell, News Center 11.
Well, if you're a motorist, and most of us are, and you like to drive to the country on weekends, and most of us do, as they say, to be forewarned is to be forearmed. Your friendly neighborhood gas station just may not be open for business the next time you drive in to fill her up at the pumps. News Center 11's Jeanette Harrison has that story.
The problem is allocation. Because the cutback on Iranian imports, a number of oil companies have begun allocating gasoline to their dealers. But each company is using its own system, and dealers are only being kept up to date on a week-to-week basis. As a result, service station operators are scrambling to remedy the problem in a variety of ways, ranging from staff cutbacks to limits on fill-ups.
We don't know. Depends on what our allocation is for April. We don't know. We haven't heard yet what our allocation will be for April.
So right now you're just planning day to day.
Right, right.
It's up to the consumer to guess or ask what changes, if any, his local service station is making. The only tip gas station managers could offer is to fill up early in the day. If you wait, you could be greeted with locks on the pumps and a close sign in the window. Jeanette Harrison, News Center 11.
And if you want a bit of good news, we have some for you tonight. 1979 has started out as a good year, anyway, for Midwest farmers. A survey released today by the Federal Reserve Bank in Minneapolis says farm earnings have improved dramatically over last year, all because of higher prices for farm commodities. About 225 members of the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers have struck the Consumer Plastic Products Division of the Anchor Hocking Corporation in St. Paul. The strike followed the union's rejection of the company's latest wage offer. Okay, right now time to check in with our meteorologist, Keith Eichner. I don't know if it's going to get any warmer or not, but it better because it's a little bit nippy out there.
Well,
for dinner tonight, and I froze myself right to the bone.
Well, Laura, if you've been outside looking at the moon in the last hour or two, we're beginning to see the approach of high ice crystal clouds.
And there's a ring around the moon.
That's right, and that's because of the refraction of those ice crystal clouds, and that is a sign of warmer weather to come, Stan, and we'll have more details on that as News Center 11 continues.
Amazing.
Color me quencher, color me wet, color me glowing and hard to forget. Color me quencher, color me wet, color me softer, the softest lips yet.
Lip Quencher, created by Chapstick, drenched with moisturizers, so your lips feel as good as they look. Color Me Quencher, any color you choose.
Color Me Quencher.
Lasso herbicide by Monsanto helps put farmers in better control of their operations. You see, most farmers surface apply their Lasso, but they also know they have the option to shallowly incorporate pre-plant.
How's things going, son? It'll be ready if we need it.
Lasso is used by more corn and soybean farmers than any other herbicide.
Coffee.
Lasso, the herbicide for the man in control.
Okay, now you guys always have a scientific answer for anything, but when I was a little kid, my mother told me that when there's a ring around the moon, it means it's going to rain tomorrow. Is that true?
Not necessarily. Sometimes ice crystal clouds can just develop, and then they can pass harmlessly off to the east, and we have a great day the next day. And I think we're going to find that tomorrow with more clouds than we bargained for, but still, with temperatures expected to be about 20 degrees warmer than they were today, I think we'll admit that tomorrow is going to be a real bargain stand.
Ah, good.
Okay, well, let's look at the current statistics, and we haven't really dropped too much since the 6 o'clock show. We're still right now at 5 degrees. It was 7 degrees at 6 o'clock, so a 2-degree drop in about 4 hours is nothing much to write home about, and that's an indicative now of the warming beginning to develop. The humidity is at 52%. The barometer is still falling at 30.10 inches. And the winds are westerly. They're not northwesterly anymore, but now westerly at 13 miles per hour, and that's one of the keys to the forecast. On the national map, here's a blob of Arctic air. It's now settling tonight across northwestern Missouri, but the coldest air aloft is now slid eastward. It's now across central Michigan. That's where the coldest air is now found. Off to our west, warming is still developing at a fairly rapid pace. Temperatures are now already in the middle 20s across central North Dakota, and already 50 degrees. That was the high today in Lewistown, Montana. Meanwhile, if you're looking for warm weather elsewhere, if you want to escape it, 78 degrees today for the high in West Palm Beach, Florida. 75 degrees in Phoenix, Arizona, with bright sunshine all across the southern portions of the United States. We should point out that this storm system and a cold frontal system across the eastern seaboard still causing heavy rains, but that is now moving out. It shows up very vividly in the satellite. We'll show you that in just a moment. But if you were outside tonight driving along, it was just a perfect night. The skies were generally clear. The moon was shining very brightly, and it was a really great night to enjoy it, if you like cold weather, that is. And we're going to be indicating more of that crisp weather, but still moderation in temperatures will be setting in over the next several hours. And here it is on the Minnesota State map as of 10 o'clock tonight. Conditions are rather variable. They range from clear skies and 2 below zero in Rochester, 5 degrees here in the Twin Cities. Off to our north, though, some light snow now breaking out across International Falls. Temperatures there at 6 degrees and 6 degrees across the northern portions of the state. Generally, though, as you can see, warming developing off to the west. On the satellite, here it is. We can now show you a large area of clouds. Here they are. It's all across the eastern seaboard. It's a very, very sharp line. That cold front is moving slowly out, and as you can see off behind me here, there's a little patch of clouds off to our north. That's where the light snow is presently falling, and that will again stay well to our north as activity, but still some of the patchy clouds moving in. Looking at our storm surge radar, nothing, as you can see, anywhere within our operational range, which gets us to the forecast. And for tonight, we're indicating generally increasing and thickening high cloudiness. Temperatures tonight will be dropping back just a little bit, but for the most part, let's say they're going to be steady or slowly rising between 0 and 7. And then for tomorrow, generally a partly sunny day and considerably warmer. Stand highs tomorrow near 30, and for Monday, more of the same with temperatures near 30 or just a little bit over.
Well, I still say if you see a ring around the moon, it means rain, but we'll just have to wait and see. Okay, Keith, thank you very much.
Okay.
A few problems have cropped up in the United States Space Shuttle program. Yesterday's practice run of the Columbia didn't go quite as smoothly as planned. NBC's Heidi Schulman has the reasons why.
A test flight of the space shuttle was delayed for more than 6 hours yesterday when NASA engineers had trouble mating the Columbia with its 747 mothership. One of the bolts which hold the aircraft together was misaligned. After its shakedown cruise, the shuttle was supposed to begin a 2-day flight to the launch site at Cape Canaveral. But during 17 minutes in the air, long strips of insulating tape and styrofoam tiles ripped loose from Columbia's frame. When it landed in the California desert, there were holes along the tail and beneath the cockpit. The foam was a substitute for permanent ceramic tiles, which will shield the spacecraft from intense heat as it re-enters the Earth's atmosphere. Temperatures up to 3,200 degrees Fahrenheit. As the foam tore off, the flapping tape damaged some of the permanent tiles already in place. So the Columbia is grounded for the weekend while engineers study what went wrong. It probably won't be ready for its piggyback trip across the country until sometime after Monday. Heidi Schulman, NBC News, Los Angeles.
That's really going to be exciting when they get that thing up there, isn't it?
I'd like that as much as sports, almost.
Just about.
High school basketball, the AA championship game going on right now. When we come back, we'll go live to Bob Kurtz at St. Paul Civic Center as News Center 11 continues.
Kimberly has the power to tell us, but no one will let her.
It's my story, it's my exclusive, I want to do it.
Goodell has the facts, but no one will believe him. No accident. Adams has the courage, but no one will listen to him.
Accident is the right word.
The China Syndrome. Today, only a handful of people know what it means, and they're scared. On March 16th, at selected theaters, you will know the China Syndrome.
From Columbia Pictures, rated PG.
All these fine, super premium beers are brewed in America. And then there's also Heilemann Special Export. Special Export may just be the finest beer brewed in the world. Special Export is brewed with the finest domestic rice and imported hops, then fully krausened, naturally carbonated in the tradition of the great European beers. Heilemann Special Export may cost a little more, but you can travel the world over and never find a better beer.
Something great about Minnesota is the fact that they really televise and broadcast and talk about their high school sports activities.
They sure do, and they got a good ball game going on right now at St. Paul Civic Center. Class AA Championship Boys State Basketball Tournament. All right, let's go live right out now to Bob Kurtz at St. Paul Civic Center. It's Duluth Central, St. Paul Central. Bob, what's going on out there?
Well, Steve, you and Stan said it exactly right. It's quite a barn burner out here right now. As we go to the court, you can see that we've got Duluth Central on the free throw line, and they have a 4-point lead, 52-48. A timeout has been called on the court with 3:12 remaining. Let's take a look right now at some of the highlights that led up to this exciting play. A 4-point lead for Duluth Central. You're going to see the star of the game so forth, Greg Downing, who had 26 and 22 points in 2 previous AA contests, leading to this finale here at St. Paul Civic Center. There you see him. What a fine pass he makes here. But look at the block by John Williams of St. Paul Central. What a move that was. Ricky Suggs pulled St. Paul Central back near the end of the first half. It was 26-23 in favor of Duluth Central. And that was a score at halftime. Now we're coming back live, and you can see behind me there is no action, but I'll return it to you, Steve, and a reminder as they're resuming coming out on the court. It is 52-48, 3 minutes and 12 seconds remaining. It looks like Duluth Central just might knock off previously unbeaten St. Paul Central.
All right, we'll try to check back and get a final score before we go off the air. Thank you very much, Bob. Okay, let's take a look at quickly the other games today. The Class A championship game, Lake City and Randy Brewer winning as expected 63-50. Rocori in the 3rd place game in the AA beating St. Louis Park 64-48. Now we're going to take a look at another important sporting event this evening. The Minnesota Gophers in the WCHA playoffs. Good news for Gopher fans. 2-1 on Tim Harer's goal in the 2nd period. Gophers winning 2-1 over UMD. It's a total goal series, of course. 2nd game tomorrow night again at Williams. I understand that game is sold out also. North Dakota is winning over Wisconsin. Last score I have 4-1 in that other playoff game. Well, the Minnesota North Stars are having no luck with Adams Division leading Boston Bruins. A heartbreaker today out at the Met. Stars losing in the last 22 seconds, 4-3. Stars, though, did let it be known, no patsying around this week for the Bruins. This is Brad Maxwell pounding Mike Milbury but that was the last victory for the Stars in that fight. They do pull out to go ahead. McAdam tipping it in here. The Stars lead 2-1. Now it is 3-3, and it looks as though the Bruins could win. Bobby Schmatz tips it in, but the ref says no goal. The whistle blew, so Boston comes back. Justice is done. Rick Middleton, with the help from some skates up front, Boston wins it 4-3. Let's take a look. The North Stars do go tomorrow. They take on St. Louis down there, an afternoon game with the Blues. Tonight in the NHL, a big game. The New York Rangers continue their dominance over Montreal. Rangers winning again 6-3. The Rangers have not lost to Montreal this year. Other scores, Flyers losing to the Penguins 3-2. That's bad news for the North Stars. Capitals beating the Blues. Tom Rowe got 4 goals in that game. Sabres Flames 5-5 tie. Other scores from the NHL, Islanders winning big. The Kings losing to the Maple Leafs as well big. Rockies 3 and the Canucks 1. College hoop making its move now towards the annual championship. First regional round action today. 3 of the top 20 teams knocked off. Let's look at some of the games you didn't see today on Channel 11. First off, it's San Francisco. The Dons winning out West 86-63 over Brigham Young. And the big guy is Bill Cartwright, right there for the slam dunk. He made the difference. He had 16 points. He repeats it right there. Total domination on the boards. Another big guy, James Bailey for Rutgers. He slams it there. He blocks a shot here. Total domination. He had 19 points on offense. Rebounds galore, as you'll see here on the defense. He is some kind of ball player. Rutgers winning that game. Let's look at the other scores. Toledo upsetting Iowa, 74-72. Oklahoma doing the same to Texas. Syracuse, 10th rated, beats Connecticut. Other scores, LSU over Appalachian State, Louisville over South Alabama, and Marquette did it easy to Pacific. You won't believe it if you go outside, but yes, it's baseball season officially underway today. Spring training opener down in Lakeland, Florida. Twins losing, though, 8-7 to Detroit. Good news, though, off the bat of Danny Goodwin. He had a grand slam home run. Let's stay in the warm weather for just a minute. Scores from down in Lauderhill, Florida. In the Inverary Classic, 3 rounds are over, and the leader is Larry Nelson. Greer Jones is tied for second with Hale Irwin. They are 4 back with 1 to go. Over in the other coast, Hollis Stacy retaining her lead in the ladies' golf in Los Angeles with Nancy Lopez, 2 back. Let's take a look quickly at boxing. This fight taking place in a rare place, a prison. The man on the left is James Scott. He's a prisoner, a light heavyweight, and he's a good boxer. 14-1, a technical knockout there over Ricky Cates. Scott now is 14-1 as a pro. He wants to fight a match, a heavyweight, light heavyweight championship bout against Mike Rossman, and if he does it, he's going to do it from that prison right there because he's in for a long time.
And Danny Little Red Lopez won, too.
He sure did. He's going to.
Thank you very much, Steve. Finally tonight, we have a story for you. We were looking for a story to close out this newscast, and I think we found one. We sent reporter Chick McEwen to a tattoo parlor, and he brought back this report.
It used to be that a tattoo was something a sailor got while drunk on shore leave and spent the rest of his life regretting. But that may not be the case anymore. Dave Yorkule, whose tattoo shop on South Nicollet in Minneapolis is the only licensed tattoo parlor in Minnesota, is also president of the North American Tattoo Club, and they recently held a national convention. The tattoo room looks like a dentist's office. Dave at the moment is tattooing a mouse on the shoulder of this young lady whose husband and baby are watching. It'll take Dave about 20 minutes and cost $42. Dave says tattooing has come a long way from the drunken sailor and is moving up the social ladder.
It's such a resurgence, and about 50% of my business is women. There's so many women getting them, and they're getting them out where they can be seen. Like I say, it's becoming more socially acceptable today. Everything in the world today is so plastic, artificial, it can be taken away. This isn't. This is real. This is forever. It'll always be there.
Were you scared?
At first I was scared. I can kind of have butterflies, but after they start, you're not scared anymore.
Why did you want this little mouse on your shoulder?
Well, I like art a lot, and I thought this way I can just carry a piece with me.
You do think this is art?
Yeah, very much so.
Dave himself has many tattoos. So does his assistant, Neil Grant. So does his attractive wife, Marge. And by the way, Dave has offered a package price to WTCN if they want to have News Center 11 tattooed across the forehead of all the reporters so they'll be easily recognized. From the tattoo parlor, this is Chick McEwen reporting.
That's a very good idea. I think all the reporters should have it right across their head, right? That's the 10 o'clock edition of News Center 11. Stay tuned now for Saturday Night Live. We'll be back tomorrow night at 5 o'clock with all the latest. Until then, for all of us here at News Center 11, I'm Stan Borman. Thanks for watching. Good night, everybody.
Prestige Lincoln Mercury is having a super wagon sale up to $1,200.